Good Mom and Monday.
You're here with the Mistake Mama podcast. I'm Kaylee.
And I'm Mandee.
And we are your hosts.
This week we are going to be talking about food. Specifically with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
You have two that are really eating and one who's still learning the process of solid foods.
Yes.
And I have one that's eating and one that is just about to start solid foods.
Mm-hmm.
So, how...
First?
Oh, yes. God. It feels like we haven't done this in a while, even though it's only been a week.
Yeah. For some reason, I feel the same.
At least
I wonder if it's
me.
the drastic change in temperature that we've had
Maybe.
in this past week. It went from being really cold last week, rainy, and now it's nice and warm.
That's true.
So I wonder if it's just, we've been through a season.
Passed. Yeah.
Here we are.
Okay. So wins, fails, books.
Wins, fails, books.
Okay. You go first.
So a win for this week, actually is food related. Funny enough. So Ellie is 10 and a half months, almost, actually. She's almost 11 months old.
Mm-hmm.
In just a couple of days, by the time you guys are listening to this, she will be already 11 months old. And she has been the pickiest in terms of eating. And so my win for this week is last night we had tacos. And we've been putting avocados on tacos now. And she ate a slice of avocado.
Nice.
And was loving it. Started with literally sucking it. I had to hold on to it so she didn't just
suck it all the way down.
Yeah, but she loved it.
Yay.
Ate the whole thing.
That's exciting.
Oh yeah, I was really proud of her.
Yeah, awesome.
So my win is related to this week's episode.
Yeah. My win is not.
Okay.
But my win also kind of goes with my fail.
Okay.
So my mom and I decided to go on a walk/hike around her not property. It's around her house.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a big 3-mile loop.
Okay.
But the loops are bloop, bloop,
Oh,
bloop, bloop.
okay.
Okay. That was a good walk.
Mm-hmm.
However, I am sore.
Oh man, I can only imagine.
That is my fail. I'm just so sore. I haven't really done any vigorous exercise since having Quincy. So that was my first
Neither have I since having Ellie.
hike. And man, were those some hills. I'd like to do it with you though, because it was really fun. It is on back country roads.
Ooh.
So at times
I love hiking.
you kind of are a little skittish because you don't know what car is going to be coming up the hill, so you kind of have to go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But we did it with the wagon, and we were fine. We just sometimes had to pull off the road when we heard a car coming or something.
Let's do it with it.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Yeah,
That sounds fun.
It was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really pretty.
Might be
back there,
chaotic to try to take all 5.
too. Yeah, Quincy slept most of the way. It took us probably a little over an hour.
Okay.
Quincy slept most of it.
Mm-hmm.
By the last stretch, she was done. She was crying, and Maverick was like, I want out, but it's a big road. I didn't feel comfortable having him just walk on it. So yeah, the last probably 15 minutes was kind of chaotic.
Maybe we could have the guys have the older kids playing at the little play thing for an hour.
True.
And then you and I can take the babies.
That's true. Yeah, that'd probably work better.
Everybody's content.
Yeah, doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the ones that could possibly need to use the bathroom have it right there.
That's true. Yeah, that's another one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Sounds fun. I'd love to.
Yeah.
Especially with the nicer weather coming. We're going to have a hot weekend apparently. I saw the weather report
Not
for this
looking
weekend and it's
forward to
100 on what, Sunday?
Yes. Mother's Day.
Of course it is.
When you guys are listening to this, Mother's Day will have passed.
Yes, but Mother's Day is right around the corner for us.
Yeah.
It's this weekend. Because today's Wednesday. We record on Wednesdays. This weekend is Mother's Day.
Which I think my mom said she wants to go to the coast. So we might be going to the coast. It's supposed to be 82 over there.
Ooh, that sounds nice. Yeah. I'm going to be at home with my AC. Because my husband works. So.
That's right. I don't know if we're going to end up going to the coast, but we might. My mom invited us. I just don't know.
You should.
We'll see.
It's going to be nicer. I'll be sitting in front of my AC.
Enjoy that. We need to put our ACs in before this weekend.
Probably a good idea. And it's going to feel even hotter with the fact that it's been off and on warm and cold.
Even these 68 degree days, I've been oh, I'm hot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, this morning I was putting makeup on and I was sweating and I'm oh my God.
Yep. I feel that.
That tap, tap, tap of your upper lip.
Yep. You very gently blot with your sleeve. Yep, I get that.
Yep. For me, it's like right above my lip and then right in between my eyebrows.
Yep. You wouldn't think it's
my
hot.
actual eyebrows. I'm like, just stamp them.
Right. Yes. You wouldn't think it's hot, but it is. Once the breeze comes, though, oh.
Yeah. Like now that window's closed.
I know, and we're all bundled up, coffee in hand. Looks like it's still
It looks like it should
weather.
be cold.
Yeah.
Like I'm in a short sleeve and I'm glad I am. I'm looking at you over there in a sweatshirt. Like, what are you doing with a blanket, hot coffee, and a sweatshirt?
I need to wear this again on the podcast. And so I chose today, and now I'm thinking about my choices. So what's your fail?
My fail. So the other night we were sitting at the table eating dinner. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we put Ellie in the high chair. Sometimes she just is not about it. And so we'll let her crawl around on the floor. Well, she was sitting under the table.
Okay.
For whatever reason. There's a lot of feet under tables.
Yes.
Damon has this thing where he enjoys kicking the bench that we have and making music. Well, that resulted in a kick to the face.
Oh, no.
And just immediate screaming and chaos. Anna's yelling at Damon. Damon's freaking out because he's like, song! And Thomas is mad at Damon. I'm irritated at Damon because he just kicked Ellie in the face, but I'm trying to comfort Ellie, and it's just chaos.
Oh, gosh. That sounds chaotic.
It was. And then, add on top of it, Damon ended up dropping his food on the floor because he was like trying to look under the bench or under the table, and he had his food in his hand, and it just like fell out of his hand all over the floor.
Good times. And Kaylee has carpet in her dining room. Not by choice.
Not by choice. If it was my choice, I would be covering it in anything I could.
Yeah. Ooh.
The only reason why I'm not putting a tarp down is because I can't deal with that sound.
Oh, no. Yeah, no. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I rent an apartment, so.
Yeah.
And they decided to, instead of extending the kitchen flooring out to the dining area, which is adjacent to it.
Right.
They extended the living room, which is technically not adjacent.
No.
It's like kitty corner.
Dumb choice on their part.
Dumb choice.
Especially because renters
right?
typically are known to be, not saying you guys are, but like messy.
I mean,
that's always a thing for renters, you know? So why would you make it to where that carpet's probably going to be the grossest part of the carpet just because
literally,
food.
Yeah. Every time I see somebody moving out of our complex, though, I always see them taking carpet out.
Oh.
And I'm wondering if it's just because the carpet's ruined.
Right.
And so they have to replace it, or if they're replacing it with something different. It would be wise to replace it with something different.
True. Can you fake move out and be like, oh, we have to move. Oh, we need Beckett. Right after they rip the carpet out.
That would be the day.
Yeah.
Anyways, what you reading?
Still reading Crescent City, book 1.
All right.
I think I'm having the hardest time because it's a third person written book.
Oh,
because it's good. It's one of those books where I'll be reading, and then my mind is just like gone, and I'm like, oh wait, what happened? Because I'm not immersed into the character.
That makes sense.
There's so many different characters happening. But still good. I'm just trucking along. So, what about you?
So I have, over the past couple days, finished A Court of Thorns and Roses. Completely. You already know this. I started reading it on Saturday, finished it on Sunday. To be fair, I am listening to it. I decided to do the graphic audio.
Oh, right.
Because I've heard from a lot of people that it's a slow book. And I was like, I suck at those.
Right.
Very, very much so.
Yeah.
So I decided to do the audio because I know that I can get through books that tend to be slower in that regard. And the graphic audio was a lot of fun to listen to. Oh, yeah. I'm sold on them. The only problem is they technically cost more. Oh. So Audible, you get like credits monthly or whatever, right? Well, graphic audios tend to split the book in 2. Oh. So instead of a book costing 1 credit, it costs 2.
Gotcha.
So.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. Thankfully, I had some already saved up. And so I've been able to get, I got A Court of Thorns and Roses, the first 2 sections of it.
Okay.
And then I now have the second book, part 1 and part 2, and the first part 1 of the third book.
Okay.
And so
you're still on the second one?
And I'm still on the second book.
Okay.
Yep, I'm on part 1 of the second book.
Okay.
Either those chapters are really, really long. Are they long chapters? Are there not many?
The second and third book are really long.
How many chapters were in the first book?
I don't remember.
Was there a lot?
I don't think so.
I should just look. I have the book. I have the physical copy. I should just look.
I think the first book is like a regular old length book. Mm-hmm. And then the second book is a little bit longer, and the third one is a lot longer.
Gotcha.
And then the fourth is incredibly short. And then the fifth is another bigger one.
I think the third book, actually, that might only be one part. There might not be multiple parts in that one. Oh. So I think I technically have the entire third book on it. I like listening to the graphic audio, so I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Okay.
I've been, when I can, actually reading it alongside it.
Yeah.
It is the most immersive I have ever felt in a book.
Really?
Like, I'll have to give you a snippet of the graphic audio because it's insane.
Interesting.
Full cast of characters. So everybody has their own voice. I've heard
it's good.
It is so good.
I'm in a Sarah J. Maas book club on Facebook. And yeah, people have said that it's great.
Amazing. Yeah. I've never listened to a graphic audio before, and I listen to audiobooks occasionally. That's how I've listened to the Mouth High Club. For those of you that have listened to me say that before, those are not graphic audios.
Okay,
those are just
somebody reading.
Whoever's chapter's perspective it's from is who is reading that, and so each character is done by whoever is talking.
Okay,
which means that men are voicing women, and then when it's the woman's point of view, the woman is voicing the men.
Okay, weird.
Which I don't love.
Yeah.
It's really annoying for me to, I don't know, it takes me out of the character.
Yeah.
And so I don't love it, but it's like, I don't know.
Sometimes easier to do it.
Sometimes it's easier because when I'm trying to read a book that I'm like, oh, I hear these are good books. It helps me get through. Oops, sorry. It helps me get through them when I just don't have time to read.
Yeah.
Or I'm wanting to be reading more than one thing.
Yeah.
And so I can because I can separate it out.
I feel like I could probably do it if I was driving somewhere, but I have a hard time just listening to something unless I have something else to distract me that isn't my children.
Yeah.
Because I'll listen to podcasts in the car and I can follow along just fine. I've tried to listen to podcasts here at home and I miss like over half of the podcast because the kids are just too much happening.
Sorry. Yeah, I get that. I feel that. I've been pretty lucky, or I was lucky this past weekend. My kids were just like chill, and so I could just listen. I had one headphone in, and or technically I was using my like headset, my Beats that I have, one on and one off.
Oh yeah.
It's because I can't put headphones in my ears yet.
Oh, because of your piercing.
Because my piercings, they're still just a little too tender for that to be comfortable. But oh my god. Good Lord. That just really chaotic. Sorry. I don't love having the over the ear, but it makes it to where I can.
Right, yeah. I don't like the in the ear. After a while, my ears get so sore.
Mine too. So I've actually been enjoying my Beats. I got my Beats for free years ago when I got my laptop. It was like a thing that it was like, get a laptop, like get a pair of Beats free. Yeah.
Cool.
Back when I was getting my very first Mac. Years and years and years ago. And I've had them all this time and I've rarely used them. And now I'm like, oh, this is the perfect time for me to like actually use them.
Yeah.
But they are very noise canceling.
Oh.
So I have to have one off or I'm gone to the world.
Right. My brother Brady has them. And when they're on, you can be talking to him like this and he's just off in his own little world. And you tap him and he's like, you talking to me? Yep, only for like 10 minutes.
Yep. Gone.
Yeah.
Poof. They have like an insulation around them. I don't know what model his are, but mine have like an insulation in the padding, so it's not just like foam, it's like there's more to it.
I have no idea.
Yeah, so I'm gone. I am fully immersed in one ear and
Yeah.
then open to the rest of the world in the other one.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit bizarre. And I have trouble because I'll be focusing on what I'm hearing in my headphone, and then I miss what's being said to me.
Oh,
and
right.
Thomas will be like, Kaylee. Anna's talking to you. And I'm like, oh. Let me pause so I can focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm on the second book.
Nice.
Of A Court of Thorns and Roses.
And you liked the first one?
I liked the first one. Everybody said it was slow, and I just didn't feel that way.
That's how I felt. I think it was slow, but it was slow in a way that was very enjoyable for me.
Yeah, a bunch of people were like, oh, you just have to really push through the first book. And I was like, no, pretty much as soon as he... Okay.
Okay, food.
So you were going to start with a question.
I was. I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. When you had Anna, because you had the first baby between us, and you knew that food was coming up, what did you decide? Did you decide puree? Did you decide baby-led weaning, and why?
So I initially wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I did a lot of research prior to giving birth to my daughter. A lot of research. I went into everything very well informed, especially for my age. And I ultimately ended up deciding to go with baby-led weaning, mostly because it is easier than having to buy all separate foods or making them yourself. Anna's first food was technically a puree. It was applesauce.
Oh, right. Wasn't it homemade applesauce?
It was.
Yeah.
Yep, she didn't like it.
Yeah.
It wasn't sweet enough
I remember
for her.
the video. Yeah.
Yeah. But I wanted to do it mainly because I feel like it kind of just jumped right in to it versus having to go across a bridge that was unnecessary.
Right.
You know, like if there's a highway or a bridge that you can walk on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Technically both are efficient, just one's more efficient than the other.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, it made more sense. And especially because like a lot of the ingredients in baby food, I wasn't super keen on. And I have a friend, or technically it's my mom's friend, but I'm relatively close with her too, who used to be a nurse. And she's done a lot of research on, you know, alternative forms of medicine, parenting, you name it. She's done the research on it. And she's talked to me about that kind of stuff and talking about, you know, the differences in choices that you can make as a parent. And so I based some of it off of her, especially because she has a medical background.
Right.
And I felt pretty confident in my choices and going slow. The slowest I went was with, I mean, technically now Ellie, but that's by her choice, not mine. Anna was my slowest in terms of when getting their first food. She was 9 months old when we gave her food for the first time.
Yeah.
What about you?
So initially, I didn't like the ingredients in a lot of baby food either. So I told Michael that we were going to make our own.
I remember that.
I hadn't known about baby-led weaning. And so while I was researching making my own, I found baby-led weaning.
Was this way before?
This was way before.
I was like, I swore I told you about it.
Yes. No, this was way before.
Okay.
And so then I was like, well, maybe we could do that, but that sounds kind of scary.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. So then I was still like, well, maybe I will make my own. So I was still kind of on the fence. I was like, baby-led weaning sounds like the best route, but also sounds very terrifying. So then when you started doing baby-led weaning, I was like, okay, let me kind of pick her ear and see what's, you know, how she's liking it. And you told me that it was going well. You had some difficulties with Anna in the beginning, but that it was going well once she actually started eating the food.
Yes. To be fair, my oldest had a tongue tie that we did not have revised. And it was a relatively deep tongue tie. So it ended up causing some issues with her tongue not moving properly. And so once we got that revised, she was fine and eating like a champ.
Yes. So once I heard that it was going well, I was like, well, now I know somebody who's doing it. So that makes me feel more comfortable going through with it. You know when you're the first one to do something?
I know that very well.
Yeah. It's a little bit more daunting.
Very.
Then to hear, oh, okay, well, you did that, so I could try that too, and feel confident that I could, ask questions or whatever. So then I talked to Michael more about it, and he was like, well, that sounds easy. We can just, modify our food slightly to fit their age. And so then we decided to go ahead and do that. And Maverick took to it great.
Damon did too.
Yeah.
Anna took until, like I said, after the revision. But even then, it was like a good month after the revision that she actually started going into things. And she was very slow, very cautious.
Yeah.
Very curious. Damon he's a garbage truck.
Yeah.
He just takes it all.
That's how Maverick was.
And his first meal was like a full, like I gave him everything. I think it was like we had tofu, rice, and bean sprouts.
Okay.
And he
was like,
took a bite of everything.
Yeah.
Yep. We cut the tofu instead of usually squares, how we do it, or cubes. More like strips for him.
Yeah.
Yep. To this day, this is one of his favorite meals.
Yeah. Maverick had avocado for his first time. And because I was still a little hesitant, I put it in the little mesh things,
So we got the flavor, but not the...
Yeah. I don't remember what his foods were after that, but he just took to everything. And he was doing great. The only issue, we never had a choking issue.
No, us either. We've had gagging.
But we never had a choking issue. We're always right there with him when he was eating. And if I was unsure about a certain food, I would look it up and be like, how to prepare this food.
Same.
Or whatever. There's an app. I can't remember what it's called, and I've deleted it from my phone. Don't know why, but I did. It basically, you can like type in their age and what food you're trying to serve them, and it will show you how to prepare it.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it kind of takes the guesswork out of a lot of things. But yeah, it was so easy. So if you're having, let's say spaghetti and meatballs, for whatever age you are, it depends, but you can just put the noodles with the sauce on their tray and
let them make a mess.
You can let them make a mess, and it depends on their age, but you can leave the meatball whole so they can hold on to it and gnaw on it. And as they get older, you cut it into smaller and smaller pieces. But yeah,
I made a
love
meat
it.
stick once. Instead of putting it in a ball, I kind of put it in more like a fish stick type shape so that they can actually hold on to it.
Yeah.
Is what I did once.
That makes sense.
It fell apart really easily, though. Thankfully, Damon was old enough at the time to where it didn't bother him.
Right. But I know. And sometimes I cut Maverick's food pretty big now because he's just... Maverick's the kind of kid, if you cut it into teeny tiny pieces for him, he's going to grab the whole bundle of teeny tiny pieces and shove it in his mouth.
That's Damon, too.
So if you just cut it into I cut it into size pieces that I eat. And then he'll eat one by one.
Yeah. Damon's the same way.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about little boys.
Know.
They're interesting.
Silly.
So I have repeated that same thing through all three of my kids now. Ellie seems to be taking to food the slowest in terms of interest.
Right.
Because like Anna was interested in it pretty quickly. She was just not capable of it because of her restrictions. Damon took to it immediately.
Yeah.
Ellie is the most curious, but like cautious.
Yes. She's definitely... She watches you eat everything that you eat, or everything that anybody eats. And she kind of gives you a look like, could try that, but then when you give it to her, it's...
Yep, just the little tongue, just...
It's like the little Squidward meme where he's eating the Krabby Patty and it's just...
Oh, yes. Yes, 100%. She takes these smallest bites out of things, and sometimes and she's so shy. I don't know what it is about her, but you'll offer her food and she just gets all shy.
Yeah.
Curls up to me and she's just like, Mom. Yeah, I do kind of want it, but don't offer it to me outright, Mom.
Very much those vibes.
100%. It's crazy.
And then Quincy, so when you guys are listening to this, she'll be 6 months old. She's able to sit now, and she doesn't have the tongue thrust thing anymore. And she hasn't had that for 2 weeks, probably. So 2 weeks ago, we gave her a tiny bit of, Michael had some rice pudding. And so we just kind of dipped the spoon in and gave it to her. And she loved it. And then the other day, I was getting sushi with my friend Taylor. And there was an avocado on one of my things, so I just picked off a piece of it and gave it to her. Loved it again.
Ooh, so she's going to be a good eater too, you think?
I haven't sat her up and let her do it herself. We haven't got the high chair out, and I'm kind of waiting for her 6 months. It's also my birthday.
Right.
So we plan on getting that out and then letting her explore with her hands and grabbing it and everything. But we were just curious to see how interested she was. And that girl, she's going to be my eater, I think.
You think so?
I think so, at least from that. And now every time we eat in front of her, she's always like,
ooh, my turn.
And she like lunges out of your arms to get to it. And I'm like, you can't have this.
So Quincy is going to be stealing food off of Ellie's plate growing up. Got it. Mm-hmm. Dynamic established.
Yeah. And now that Maverick's seen that we kind of have given her some things, he tries to give her stuff. So that's a little dangerous.
Yep. Damon does the opposite. If we try to give Ellie food, he's like, no, baby.
That's funny.
And we'll be like, it's okay. And he goes, no. Just gets
don't hurt my sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's says so the guy funny. Who will just swack.
Right. Only I can hurt my sister.
Oh, well, at least that's established.
Yeah. What would you say the scariest thing is for you with eating?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm always scared of choking, and I'm pretty good about the whole loud and red, let them go ahead. If they're silent and blue, they need help from you thing. I am pretty good at establishing of like, okay, what is this? Is this actually gagging? Is this choking? Should I intervene? Should I just let her?
Right, until they get it out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But so that's always really scary. Mm-hmm. The
it's just gross.
Yeah, it really bothers me.
Yeah.
And I'll be like holding her and she'll be doing it and I'm like,
now I'm going to upchuck.
But the other scary thing too is like, you know, me and Thomas don't have food allergies, but that doesn't mean that they won't.
Right.
And so, you know, going through and trying to figure out like, is my kid going to have an allergy? That's terrifying.
Right.
And so she has been exposed to several different allergens. She's been exposed to shellfish, peanut butter, and we tend to do on the skin prior to actually ingesting.
See if it reacts.
Yes. And so we will touch her on like either her hand or something with that first, and then if no reaction, then like her lips. And then if no reaction, we'll let her eat it.
Yeah.
We haven't, or no, she's done eggs because she's had fried rice. And that we put eggs in our fried rice. So yeah, she's had most of the major allergens. But it's scary, especially knowing that the very first exposure, they typically won't have a reaction at all. It's the second.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yep. So the way that food allergies specifically works, I think actually bee allergies are like this too, but I don't know if all allergies are. The first time you're exposed to it is when your body creates those antigens or antibodies or whatever. It creates the nights. Okay. Yes. And then
antibodies.
Yeah, I think it's the antibodies. But they don't have them prior to it. And so it's because of that first reaction that they create them. And so the second time, it's like these antibodies are on steroids and are just like, we're ready to go.
Oh,
and then so the second time they get that exposure is when they go crazy.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I've heard that you can have a small reaction the first time, but that's why it supposedly gets worse every single time.
Okay.
And why, if maybe you didn't have anaphylaxis to peanut butter as a kid, but like you would get hives, if you have it again, you might get anaphylaxis.
Oh, okay.
It's because of that buildup of antibodies that are not reacting the way that they're supposed to.
Yeah.
That's not a great explanation, but that's from my understanding how it works.
Yeah. There's two things that Maverick has had a reaction to. One has gone away and one is still kind of there. Tomatoes, when he was little, he would break out in a rash all over his face. Wherever the juice touched him, seemed mostly skin is what it was.
Could it just be a reaction to the acidity?
Maybe, but he wouldn't do it to any other acidic fruits. It was only tomato.
Oh, okay.
So that's why...
I do have one food allergy. I am allergic to kiwis.
Oh, I remember you telling me that.
Do I still eat them? 100%. Is my mouth on fire every time?
Yeah.
Also, yes.
But now he loves tomatoes. And now if he gets it on his skin, I never see any kind of breakout or anything.
Okay, so maybe not like a true reaction, of more so just like the skin being like, what is going on here?
From the tomato.
Maybe?
Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting. Okay.
And then, so...
Was it soy was the other one?
No.
No.
Dairy.
Right, dairy. Anna was soy. Anna had a soy reaction that only lasted a little while.
Okay. So I was allergic to milk as a kid. I'm still probably technically, because I definitely get a swollen, itchy throat and
that sounds
itchy lips.
Like you still have an allergy to it.
But it's not an intolerance. It's not like I'm lactose intolerant where I drink milk and then I have massive diarrhea.
It's an allergy to the protein.
Yes, it's an allergy.
Which there is a difference. For some people that maybe don't know that, lactose intolerance can be treated using a lactase supplement. A protein allergy cannot.
Right. You're just allergic to it. So I think that Maverick may have more of an intolerance. Michael has an intolerance. And I think I've mentioned on here that we were vegan for a while. So,
which I do want to get into that here.
Right. So Maverick we raised him vegan, plant-based until he was about 2, a little before 2, maybe. And we've tried dairy again. We had given him something when he was younger, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was some kind of pastry or something.
Okay.
And it's like he gets a tummy ache from it. So I think he's more intolerant because then also he doesn't get diarrhea, but definitely his poops change.
Okay.
So I think his body's just intolerant. I think obviously if we gave it to him enough, he would build a tolerance to it because that's how most
I was going to say
things
might.
are. But because we don't consume dairy anyway, it's kind of like, you know, we'll let him have. So like if I'm very lax on my dairy intake, even though I'm the one of the family that probably should be watching it more carefully because I have an actual allergy. But like, let's say I got a chocolate chip cookie from the store. I'll let Maverick have some of it. And he's okay. But I'm not going to just give him a glass of milk.
Yeah.
Because he's had a glass of milk before and things go south.
Oh,
literally.
Oh, that's funny.
So that's why I think he has an intolerance to it. And then Michael has an intolerance to it. And he's also wondering if he has a slight allergy to it because he will sometimes get like itchy throat now or itchy lips if he accidentally consumes it.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know how that works as far as like developing an allergy later on. I know it can happen. Right.
You can also lose allergies.
Yeah. So
you can gain them, you can lose them. Oh, I'm allergic to tilapia. That's the other thing that I became allergic to in adulthood.
That's right.
Because
fun.
Fuck me sideways.
Yeah. So, yeah, but now that we're no longer vegan, like he eats meat. He still is not fond of mini. He likes red meat. Not fond of chicken. I think it's a texture thing though.
Could it just be the way that you're preparing it, possibly?
I don't know. He's tried it in many different forms.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe it could be texture then.
I think it's texture. Because also he always thinks it's tofu. And tofu and chicken have very different textures.
Okay.
So I think maybe he's going into it thinking this is going to be tofu. And then it turns out to be this stringier meat that doesn't quite
So then he probably won't like pork then either. Because pork is pretty similar to chicken in terms of texture.
Yeah. And the only pork he's had is bacon. Which he does like bacon.
True.
But that's different.
Yeah.
I feel like
I'm talking like pork chop
chop.
types.
Yeah. Pork chop is basically chicken, I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, slightly different, but
slightly.
Yeah.
Depending on how it's cooked. If you cook it properly, it has a very different texture.
Right.
But if you cook it like most people do, it ends up being very similar to chicken.
Dry.
Because it's supposed to be pink on the inside.
I know. Very lightly pink, which freaks me out.
It freaks me out too. But I mean, and then I'm the type of person like, I'm eating my steak like rare.
Oh, okay. Same. But pork, for some reason, freaks me out.
I don't know why.
Pork and chicken, I'm like...
Well, chicken definitely should be white.
Well, I know. But I almost like overcook both of them because I'm just have this fear that it's going to be pink.
I've been getting a lot better about not overcooking my chicken because, God, I can't stand a dry chicken.
I know, me either. Then you have to slather it in sauce and like... Yeah.
We've been making chicken a lot more recently because I've been making like a breaded mozzarella chicken, which is a godsend.
That sounds good.
It is so good. Literally just breaded chicken, and I do my own breading with like breadcrumbs and like whatever. It's like an Italian seasoned.
Okay, so it's like what is that called? Chicken parmesan?
Kind of. Mm-hmm.
Kind of.
And I put Parmesan in it too.
Okay.
And then let that bake in the oven. And then once it's like starting to get like that, you know, when breadcrumbs start to turn kind of like that golden brown color. Mm-hmm. And then I put on shredded mozzarella.
Mm-hmm. Yum.
Let that brown. Just, it's so good.
Yum.
With like Parmesan pasta or even potatoes.
We're having chicken soup tonight.
Ooh, yum.
I boiled the chicken last night.
Whoop, whoop.
Which boiled chicken always sounds so scary because it can go dry so fast.
I've never had boiled chicken get dry.
Really?
I wonder if it's because we don't... I mean, 9 times out of 10 when we're using boiled chicken, though, we're putting it in something that is like...
Saucy or soupy.
Yeah. So I don't think we notice it very much.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I've made Thomas like a spicy chicken wrap before with shredded chicken. Mm-hmm. And I'm the worst when it comes to boiling chicken. I leave that shit in way too long.
Yeah. But yeah, I boiled the chicken last night. And then we ended up having pizza. And then tonight we're going to have the soup.
Nice.
Yes.
Sounds delicious.
I'm excited.
I love making soups.
I love soup.
Like we're making a beef tip and potato soup on Sunday.
Yum.
Is the plan for a Mother's Day dinner. Mm-hmm. Because it just goes in like the crock pot and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
It's actually not going in the crock pot. It's going in our new Dutch oven.
Oh, okay.
I got one of those ceramic coated cast iron Dutch ovens. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to use it for the first time.
I have a small one.
I have a big one.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use it.
Nice.
Yeah. And so that's what we're doing on Sunday with some homemade bread.
That'd be good.
Anyways, so I do have a question for you.
Okay.
So you mentioned that you raised Maverick for the first 2-ish years of his life. Mm-hmm. Vegan. Mm-hmm. You guys are not vegan anymore.
No.
How was that? Or actually, let me preface that question with this one.
Okay.
What was your deciding factor, other than the fact of you guys also being vegan, on why you wanted to raise him vegan? Okay. And then the follow-up question to that is, what changed?
Okay. Well, the biggest reason was because we were / mostly Michael. Mm-hmm. I have been vegan off and on. When I get pregnant, I'm not.
That is consistent.
And then usually like a few months postpartum, I'm not. Mm-hmm. So that was probably the biggest reason, because we were mostly eating vegan food in our house. And then also we wanted him to be able to understand what he was eating. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about this with Quincy, because we're not vegan anymore. Mm-hmm. We're dairy-free, but we're not vegan.
Mm-hmm. That's more so dairy-free by necessity versus by exactly. choice.
So we've toyed with, okay, well, now do we give Quincy the same diet that we gave Maverick, or do we give her similar to what we have now? Mm-hmm. I think we're leaning towards the diet that we're eating now, just because that's what we're eating now.
It's easier than having to prepare her something different. We
still like the idea of our kids to know where their food comes from. Mm-hmm. So like Maverick, we told him when he started eating meat, this beef this came from a cow. And so when he first started eating meat, he would always say, moo.
Oh, man.
And
I don't know why that's a little unsettling.
When we would go to the farm, we would say, like this is a cow. This is, sometimes this is what we eat. Mm-hmm. And we wouldn't ever be like gruesome, like we kill this cow, slaughter him and cut him up and cook him in our home. Yeah. But we definitely want to know, or we want our kids to know where their food comes from. Mm-hmm. Because at any point they feel, okay, I don't feel comfortable eating this, or I don't like the way it makes me feel. Cool. We totally understand. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to let Quincy eat meat. We would probably give her dairy just to see how she reacts, so we know. But because we're pretty dairy free, she's probably going to be dairy free.
That makes sense.
I noticed with both my kids, actually, if I consume dairy and they have my breast milk, they aren't feeling so great that night.
Okay.
Tummy
That's
pains,
interesting.
gas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah.
We do Anna's really the only one who's fully old enough to completely understand where your food comes from. Mm-hmm. But we do tell her. So she's asked before, where does beef come from? Like, well, it's the meat of a cow. You know how we have muscles? It's like, it's the muscle of a cow. It's like, it's the circle of life. We eat things, when we die, things will eat us, kind of.
Right.
So we've very briefly explained those things to her. And she doesn't personally seem to have an issue with it, at least not as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. And I feel like I totally understand, kids are young. They're only going to understand as much as they can understand.
Yeah.
And so maybe the kids turn 10, 11, and they're like, oh, I don't think I'm okay with eating a chicken because I like my chickens or whatever,
Exactly.
I like that we're open to that. So, and we know what it's like to be vegan, so it wouldn't be like a hard thing to switch up if we needed to for our meals,
Yeah, and we feel that same way too. Like, if anybody in our family decides that they don't want to eat a specific thing, okay.
Right.
I'm going to respect their choices, because like, I didn't eat red meat from the time I was like 14.
Okay.
I think up until I was almost 17. I may have actually been a little bit younger than that. And it started because, so I got the idea because the guy I was dating at the time, before Thomas, he didn't eat red meat. Their entire family didn't eat red meat.
Okay.
But my mom also didn't do the greatest at cooking steak.
Oh.
She knows.
I was
We've
like,
talked
where is
about
this going?
She knows. It was just always so dry.
Oh.
Like, it was like, well done.
Gotcha.
So I was eating jerky.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, I almost used it as an excuse to not have to eat it anymore because I didn't like it. Mom, I'm sorry. She already knows this, so she's so much better about it now.
Yeah.
She eats her steak like medium, so I'm proud of her.
Yeah. My mom is a well done. She can't eat, like, if there's pink in her steak, she's sick. Can't look at it.
Oh, gosh.
So she's a well done kind of girl, too.
I can see why they were friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I used that as kind of like my excuse. And Thomas loved steak. Still does.
Right.
We're having steak on Friday. And he's the one who actually got me back into it, because he was like, let me just make you a steak. And he made me the best goddamn steak I'd ever had in my life. I still remember the experience of this particular steak, because it had been years. And it was the first steak I ever had that I actually enjoyed the flavor of.
Right.
Because like, when I would have steak as a kid, I used to have to eat it with like A1 sauce or something, because it was just so dry.
Yep.
I can already feel my mom listening to this and just cackling. It's kind of one of those situations where like, she'd be like, you'll be proud of me, sends me a picture and it's pink.
That's awesome.
But yeah, and so, he's the one who got me back into eating steak, because I went so long without having it.
Yeah.
And so like, I remember not eating something as a kid, and it wasn't the most respected in my house, but that wasn't because of my mom. It was because of my stepdad.
Right.
And so I don't want to repeat that for my kids if they have a decision that they're like, I don't want this.
Right.
So I'll be like, okay, let's, on nights where we're having this, let's pre-plan
what you're going to be having.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
potentially prepare it the same. So at least the, general whatever is at least similar. Yeah. Because side dishes are usually planned based off of what the main course is. So like, if we're having steak, potatoes, and like asparagus, for example, should probably have whatever is replacing the steak.
Yeah.
To be something that makes a little bit more sense, than just chicken nuggets.
Right. Yes.
Did you hear my tummy just?
I didn't.
My tummy's gurgling.
I didn't.
Talking about a lot of food.
I know. I'm getting hungry too. So you've kind of mentioned off and on, and I kind of already know the answer to this.
Okay.
But you've been saying like, we're going to have steak on Friday. We're going to have this on Sunday. So when did you start meal prepping, and how is that going?
So we get good about it for like a month and a half, and then we get bad at it, and then we get good at it again. Typically once a week, which is when we typically do our grocery shopping, we will plan out. We try to do it on Saturdays.
Okay.
We will plan out what we're going to have for the rest of the week. And then a little into the next week, because we like our grocery trips to kind of do about a week and a half worth.
Right.
Depending. And then we'll do like little runs to the grocery store for something that needs to get picked up like day of.
Right.
Like on Sunday when I'm doing the soup, my husband's going to, on his way home from work, go pick up some green onions so I can have some fresh green onions to stick in there,
right,
that kind of thing. So, and there's like little trips to the store, like if we run out of creamer, run out of milk, run out of butter, right? But we also try to get extras of those things. Like we'll put an extra tub of butter in the freezer or whatever.
Right.
But so we try to do that prepping once a week-ish. And sometimes we'll leave an open space or two to like be able to put something easy like, oh, I don't know what we want to do. We'll just do spaghetti or we'll just do tofu and rice or whatever.
Yeah.
And we have it on these like little magnetic squares that we stick on the day on the calendar so we can easily just take that off and put it on a different day.
Okay.
If need be. But we try to do it because we used to struggle a lot with like, oh, well, what do we want for dinner? As we should probably be making dinner.
Us.
And then we struggle because, well, nothing's thought out. And then we end up just having something that we've had a million times over because it's easy and there's not anything else. Or we end up getting takeout because we can't figure out something. And that's not really sustainable.
That's us. Or we end up having dinner at like 8 o'clock.
Yeah. And with Thomas needing to wake up at like 4 a.m. for work, that is not feasible.
Right. We're always really good about breakfast and really good about lunch.
I'm not.
Hi, airplane. So breakfast, we'll either do like bacon and eggs and toast, or we'll do pancakes, or we'll do French toast, or we'll do oatmeal, or sometimes it's just toast and berries or cereal. Like we always have stuff for breakfast. There's always a million things that we can choose from. And I feel like for us, breakfast is like no big deal. We got it.
Polar opposite. I do not eat breakfast. Thomas does not eat breakfast.
Okay.
We skip breakfast completely.
Okay.
The only exception to that is my mom has been coming over every Monday and bringing donuts. And so I'll have donuts for like the next couple days.
Yeah. So it's like a quick grab.
Yep. The kids will have waffles or cereal or oatmeal.
Okay. Yeah, because we usually wake up and Maverick, he's hungry immediately. Like he wakes up and is like, eat.
So are my kids.
So when we go out, usually we'll get him like a little bit of cereal or a piece of toast or something just while we figure out what breakfast is. And then once we figure out, then we figure it out and then we ask him if he wants that. And then then we go from there. And then lunch, we always have like sandwiches, nuggets, leftovers from the previous dinner.
My kids will not eat leftovers.
I used to be that way.
I don't know what it is. My kids just do not want it.
I used to be that way. It used to gross me out.
Maybe my kids
really
are like that.
bad.
We're really good about eating leftovers and not showing it, so I know that they're not like learning it from us.
Right.
Because
my
like,
parents were too.
Weird.
I just, for some reason, the idea of it really grossed me out.
Yeah.
And also, still to this day, the smell of cold leftovers is enough to almost turn me away.
Huh.
Yeah. Sometimes I have to have Michael dish it up for me. And I can't see that it was cold and I can't smell that it was cold. So just pop it in the microwave and bring it to me.
Oh, funny. Thomas is bringing me leftover. We had tacos last night. So I've got some rice and shrimp again. I think he's also bringing me a salad too to have with it.
Nice. Yeah. I feel for your kids because I totally get it.
I mean, I guess that helps validate it a little bit for me because I've always been like, why? Why do you not want it? You liked it last night? Like,
yeah. That's exactly
my kids don't have an
am.
answer for me. Anna specifically gets really emotional. She's a very emotional child. Honestly, all of my children are.
Right.
Which I love.
Yeah.
I want them to be able to show emotions.
Yeah.
But she's like, I don't know. I just don't want it.
Poor thing. Yeah. Maybe she just doesn't like it.
Maybe.
Like the idea of it. Because obviously once the food's heated up and handed to me, I'm like, oh, this is great. But the idea that it was cold used to really turn me off. And now I kind of just like, gotta save money.
Yeah.
So I
guess that makes
put
sense.
my blinders on.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have a weekly schedule. Do you try to do some kind of a daily schedule? Because I'm kind of let's just eat when we're hungry kind of a thing. We try to like, okay, if we want him to be in bed by 9:30, maybe this sounds crazy to people, but if we want him to be in bed by like 9:30, I don't want him to eat like past 8:30.
That's kind of how we are too. I don't have a very specific schedule for the day. Breakfast is kind of just whenever they wake up, which is anywhere between like 7 and 9. Lunch, I try to have between like right around 11-ish.
Okay.
And then they usually get a snack around 3. And then I try to have dinner 7:30. Okay. It's just kind of what we're looking at. I try to have it earlier, but realistically, that's when it ends up being.
Right, yeah.
But I'm not super particular. Some days it's earlier, some days it's later.
You're not like, it's noon, we have to have lunch now. Yeah,
I'm pretty loosey-goosey when it comes to that. I also don't like schedules.
Right.
It feels too restricting, and there are times where I'll be like, okay, it's getting close to lunchtime, and my kid's like, I'm not hungry.
Right.
It's like, okay, do I force you to eat?
Yeah.
Or do you skip the meal entirely if I'm going to be adhering to this schedule?
Right.
And that just doesn't seem feasible to me. So there are times where, maybe Damon will eat at 11 because that's when he's ready for it. Anna won't eat until closer to 1.
Right. Yeah, we try to follow more like guidelines, but it's mostly just when we're hungry. Because sometimes we won't have lunch until 2 o'clock.
I've had that. That was me the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing too with food is I don't want to create a bad relationship with it.
Same.
So I try to be really casual with it.
Yeah.
If my kid says she doesn't like, I say she because it's usually Anna.
Right.
But either of them really. If any of my kids are like, I don't like this, then one, I try to figure out why. What is it? Can I alter it?
Right.
Does it need a little bit of pepper? Does it need a little bit of salt? Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Do you want ketchup? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
How can we alter it rather than getting you something else entirely? Right. But there are certain things that, kids are just not going to like. And we don't like, I don't do well, you have to eat at least half of it if you don't like it. Because there are certain things where I can't do it.
Yep. Same. With Maverick, you just have to try it.
Yep. That's our rule too.
Just
you have to have 2 bites.
If you don't like it, then we can look at something else. But I also try on his plate, I try to put at least 1 to 2 things of things that I know he'll eat. And then I put things that maybe he'll eat, maybe he won't eat.
Yeah.
And then go from there. And sometimes the stuff that I know he won't eat, I'll throw on his plate. And there's been times where, and I just don't say anything. I just put it on his plate and I say, here's your dinner, here's your lunch, whatever. And I'll see him over there and he kind of like picks at it and he'll put it in his mouth, chew it up. Sometimes he'll swallow it. Sometimes he takes it right back out, puts it back on his plate.
Yep. Damon's dramatic if he doesn't like it. Letting it fall out of his mouth onto his plate. And you're like...
Maverick does that sometimes. Or he'll start chewing it and he goes... Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. And I'm like, is it yucky? And he goes... Mm-mm. And I was like, come here, spit it out. He's like...
That's funny.
But yeah, I try not to force anything.
Same. Yeah.
I just try to offer everything that I can because I've heard that kids' taste buds change rapidly.
Yep.
And so I offer things that maybe he didn't like last week. I'll offer him again this week and just see. And a lot of times it changes. Like he used to love broccoli. Now he's like, I don't want it.
Interesting.
I'm like, oh, okay, well, now you love tomatoes. Okay, cool. We swapped a veggie for a veggie. Right. Well, works. Fruit, but
might as well be
whatever.
A veggie.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're the same way. We do the 2-bite rule. And usually it's because that first bite is small and they just swallow it or spit it out immediately. And I'm like, okay, so you got the fear over with the first bite. The second bite, you're actually tasting it.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do. And we don't really determine how big that bite needs to be, but it needs to be big enough to where
you're tasting it. Right. You're not Squidwarding it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We sometimes it's easier for him to try things if it's on our plate. Too. Like if we're loving it.
Yeah.
And he's like, what is that? I'm like, you want a bite? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, okay, here you go. And then he loves it. I'm like, it's on your plate. He's like, okay, well, you can eat it off my plate. I don't personally care about my kids eating off my plate. I usually will just put a little extra on my plate now because I know he's going to come eat off my plate. But I know some people are anti.
I have heard of some people doing the whole, like, you pile your plate high enough that you know you're going to be scooping some onto theirs and handing them an empty plate, pointing to yours and be like, which one do you want to try? Have them try a little bit. You want some? Okay. And then putting it on their plate.
That's a good idea too.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
I haven't personally tried that because I mean, Damon is just,
he's down to eat his own plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very
A lot of times Maverick wants his own plate
Mm-hmm.
and he gets really excited about his own plate. But there's times I notice it's breakfast most of the time that he just wants to eat off our plate.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Food is a very taboo subject.
It is.
Too.
It is.
Like, society likes to get right up in that and talk about it. You know, there's a lot of different ways that people can approach food.
Right.
Some positive, some not.
Mm-hmm.
And even within households.
Yeah.
Like, because Thomas, for example, used to be the type of person to where, and this is how he grew up.
Mm-hmm.
If it's on your plate, you finish it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to at least finish what's put on your plate.
Right.
I don't like that rule.
Me either.
And my biggest gripe with that is scalloped potatoes.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I remember you don't like those.
I've tried it so many times.
Yeah.
For some reason, it actually makes me want to vomit.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I like
know.
potatoes. I like cheese.
Right. You like butter? You like cream?
It literally, I don't know what it is, but I physically cannot get myself to even finish a bite of it.
Yeah.
And it's not even just like a specific way that it's been made. Restaurants can't do it. Thomas's mom tried to make it for me. Can't do it. My mom can't do it. Nobody has been able to make a scalloped potato that I feel confident enough to actually finish a bite with.
Right.
And not be running to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah. And it was in Thomas's mom's house.
Mm-hmm.
That when I tried it, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to finish this. And she's like, well, I'd appreciate it if you finished the whole thing. I'm like, I physically can't. I told you when you were making this that I don't like this.
Right.
And she's like, okay, well, but you've never had mine. Like, I just did.
And it wasn't.
And like, I was able to get it down. I was like, but I will not take another bite of this.
Right.
She got irritated at me.
That's crazy. And you're like a grown up at this point.
Yeah,
18.
I was an adult.
Yeah.
And it's the whole, like, I was a guest in her house, though. And it was insulting to not finish the food.
Oh, gosh. Even though you already warned her.
So I gave it to her dog.
I'm in the mindset of...
I literally just scooped it into their plate.
That's funny.
Their bowl or whatever.
I'm in the mindset of, like, I would rather Maverick... I say Maverick because he's the only one that's actively eating.
Yeah.
I would rather he listen to his body. If he's full, then okay, you're full. You know?
Yeah.
And I usually will leave his plate there for a while because maybe he's full in this moment.
Oh, same.
But you can come back and you can eat your food. I'm not gonna, you're full and then you go get an ice cream. Like, I'm not that lenient. I'm just, if you don't want to eat it right now, okay, but it'll be here when you get back.
That's what I said with my kids too. I'll be like, okay, you're saying you're done? All right, leave it there. Mm-hmm. When you're ready to come back to it, you can come back to it.
Yeah, and I'll usually swap it out when the next meal comes. If it's not something that's going to go bad on the table, you know. Mm-hmm. But that's what you're going to snack on then, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, until you eat a certain amount that I feel confident that, okay, that's gross. You can go through that.
Yeah. Damon is like that with oatmeal.
Oh, okay.
It cracks me up because he'll just eat it cold. Yeah, so Damon will, like, he'll be all done with his oatmeal for breakfast and I'll be like, okay, just leave it there and I'll heat it up for you whenever you're ready. And then I'll come back to it later and it's gone. But yeah, that cold oatmeal.
Yuck.
Anyways.
I feel like
that kind of wraps it up.
Yeah.
It was food is taboo, you do you. You know, as long as you're not poisoning your child, then
yeah,
all's probably fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Toddlers are wild. They will, you know, for several days just be eating Cheerios and then the next day they're like, I need 5 3-course meals.
Literally. Yeah. And,
But
you know, I think that it's important to go at your kid's pace. And I know that not everybody agrees with that, but personally, I think that that's important.
yeah.
And I think that my kids at least respect, or they like that I respect them and their stomachs.
Right. Yeah. I think kids also, they listen to their bodies more than adults do.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've also been trained not to.
Exactly.
And so, you know, that's kind of what my take is on that.
Same.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think that can end our episode right here. If you guys are watching and listening, right after this, we will have our little insert of talking about where I'm sitting with A Court of Thorns and Roses and her, talking back and forth. There will be spoilers, but if you're interested in that, you can keep on listening. If you're not, you can go ahead and end it after our salute.
Yeah.
Farewell, salute.
Salute. Goodbye.
I don't know. Goodbye.
Farewell.
Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And we will catch you next week. Share this video with someone that you know.
Yep.
And maybe you can send it to somebody who's maybe questioning what they want to do, and they can hear our little take.
Yeah. True that.
True that.
All right.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.